Thank you, Mike, for agreeing to talk with us about your experience.
My pleasure.
I was hoping that you could start with just giving us a little bit of background about yourself and kind of what was your life before your diagnosis, understanding that you were diagnosed at such a young age, but just if you can give us kind of the context of the before, that would be
Sure.
great.
Sure. I grew up in a small town called Chambersburg in the mountains of Pennsylvania by Gettysburg for a reference point. Great childhood. Got into all the best universities. Chose Penn State, Nittany Lions, Go Lions. And yeah, it was just a kind of a picture book childhood, no major incidents of any kind, a completely coasting through childhood
Mm,
with only happy memories. It was a good time.
fantastic. And then how did you discover that you had cancer?
And came back north and was exhibiting symptoms of frequent urination without having to go to the bathroom. It eventually got severe enough that I went to the emergency room on Christmas Eve of 1993. He discovered a lump and
Mm.
he wanted to do some tests and did a sonogram at that time and found out that I did indeed have testicular cancer. It wasn't related. My symptoms were not related to that cancer.
Oh,
Uh,
interesting.
I actually had developed a urinary tract infection, and if it wasn't for that issue, that I would never have discovered this. I believe there was three types of testicular cancer that I was identified as having the worst of the three. So their concern was it was going to spread and spread quickly. So I went to the surgeon and had the left testicle removed, where they confirmed their worst fears, and it had was already showing in a gland that's adjacent to your testicle. So they requested that I come in for a CAT scan, which showed that it had spread through my lymphatic system, primarily up my aortic artery. When he described it to me, I was completely in shock that I could have cancer, but B, where it was, and had never been in my radar of any way, shape, or form. So that was pretty terrifying.
Can we talk a little bit about the emotions you were feeling at the time? And you're a young man, you're looking at your future ahead of you, and you're delivered this news.
Just to qualify this, it lasted one day. But I was completely devastated. I couldn't hold in the tears driving back. Now, mind you, I'm in my 20s, so it wasn't like I was reliant on transportation. So I drove myself actually to my father's house, who was at work, and I called my mother and just lost it. I broke down in complete terror. Um, and the next day had righted myself. I felt invincible at 23 years old.
Mm.
So in my mind, I look back and I go, wow, I was 23. I had one day of severe terror. And the next day I was like, well, this is going to be a pretty strong inconvenience, but let's get that done and go on with life. So after that first day, I believe in my heart of hearts that I was in complete denial that this could cause me any long-term effects or that it could be fatal if I didn't do all the right things.
When you think about the ripple effect that that diagnosis had on your parents, I don't know if you had other siblings. What did it feel like for you in terms of their response or their reaction to what was happening?
As you can imagine, and now I can certainly imagine as a parent of seven, that they were terrified. And that came across more as they pity me. And that's how I took it. That's not what they meant. But I felt this, oh, poor Michael kind of thing, which I really didn't want any part of. And in retrospect, my behavior and reaction to that was quite poor. And I basically shut both of my parents out of the dialogue. I wish I could take back everything I did and said to my parents during my entire treatment, to be honest with you.
How did your mindset change over time? Did you need different types of support through that process? What helped get you through?
Again, I was terrible as far as asking for help. My mother came to visit me post the second invasive surgery, the bad surgery, and I threw her out of my room.
Mm.
Um, I told her to leave, and I told her not to come to begin with. And again, something I completely regret. I wish I had the support that I probably needed, but I was the one that was not accepting of that. And I didn't want to hear about cancer. I really wanted to ignore it, do what I had to do as if you were on a job, you do the activities even if you don't like them. You're paid to do that, and I
Mm.
was paying myself to get that completed.
Did you have a concept in your mind of what was giving you hope through all of that?
So to me, this was a winning losing situation, and I was going to win. And that's how I was raised. And the guys I hung out with, all winners. I mean, we sports was a big deal where I grew up, and so I took that mentality that this was a challenge, and I was going to win. And I wasn't just going to win; I was going to be the best winner of all time, right? So that kept me going. I really changed my outlook on life. Life up to that point was coasting. I was given some gifts at birth, and everything seemed easy. And it was the first time in my life it was like, it's not easy. You got to work for this.
Having gone through what you went through, now looking back, what would you have liked to have known then that you know now?
I think mostly that you really need the people that care the most. Um, you need to let them in.
I've had people say to me things like, "Well, I wish I knew about your organization," right? But there weren't many organizations at the time delivering that kind of support at the time that you were diagnosed. But now looking back, do you think it's something that people should, really lean into and take advantage of if they have the opportunity to connect with services like this?
100%. And
Mhm.
and I'll tell you why. And yes, I regret the treatment of my parents and probably the most important people that I needed. The other thing that I needed really, really bad was questions answered.
Mm.
But why me? What's next? Is this going to, you know, change what I'm able to do and accomplish? The one thing that it did do, negative for the rest of my life, was it rendered me sterile. Now,
Mm.
I've mentioned I have 7 children. My father, another very intelligent, pragmatic person, God rest his soul. Um, when I went in to go get the second surgery, cryogenics was coming out, and he saw something or read something and said, you should go donate if you ever want to have children, donate. And so I went to a fertilization cryogenic clinic and donated my participation in having children. um, and they froze that, and I ended up having my daughter roughly 10 years, probably 9 years after
Wow.
uh, my surgery. I had my first child through in vitro fertilization. Went back for a second time and had triplets on the second go around. And by the way, those were embryos made the first round that then got refrozen for a 3-year period. And I ended up with 4 of my own biological children. The other 3 are my stepchildren, who are just wonderful too. And um, it was very important to me to have my own children. I was the last Fredericks of my family, the last male, and I had 2 sons out of the 4 biological children, which was fantastic. If it wasn't for him, he wouldn't have these 4 beautiful grandchildren. So yeah, that was one question that was answered by my father.
Mhm.
All the other questions I have, he was not in a position to answer, having not experienced anything. And it would have been great to ask these questions for somebody that was not emotionally invested in me, like a
Mhm.
family member, and not a friend that these topics of conversation can drag down a conversation or a relationship when you're a young person like that to the point where they don't want to hang out with you if that's all you want to talk about. Right. So I avoided talking about it like the plague. Whereas if a third party that went through it, that I could go, well, what did you do about that? What do you, I didn't have that. And God, it would have been helpful.
Any thoughts, words of wisdom that you would have for somebody facing cancer as a young person today?
Embrace it. Embrace the fact that this could be a worse thing than you hope. Um, so tell those people that are close to you that you love them. Um, and it's not just words, tell them why. You know, why do you love this person? Why do you care about them? You know, do you still want them in your life 10 years from now, 15 years from now? Why are they important? Have those dialogues, let people in. And I'm not going to discount my friends would get bored if I kept talking about it. Don't dwell on it. Do what you're supposed to do, eat what you're supposed to eat, do with your body what you can. Don't get defeated, don't give up, don't quit.
Mike, I really want to thank you for going down this journey of this conversation, kind of reliving your experience to help others. It's very impactful.
Well, you're welcome. It was my pleasure.